Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
And the Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
Yo, what is up, guys? It is Deibs, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. The Party on Broad podcast can be found on iTunes and Spotify. If you're watching us here at the Painted Lions YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment. Did you like the podcast? Let us know. We want to hear from you. Joining me today is my man Tyson, our hockey expert here at TPL. Follow him on Twitter at QuayBellTyson. What's up, man?
Not much. Excited to talk about the person that shares the name with the most famous anthem singer in possibly Philly sports history.
That's right, sir. Today we are talking about a season review of Carter Hart. We're going to review his season. We're going to talk about the future. We're going to grade his 2019-2020 season. And then we're going to look to what we could expect from Carter Hart moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about season in review for Carter Hart. Dude, I got to lead off. When was the last time we've had a discussion about one of the top goalies in the NHL and the Philadelphia Flyers? Carter Hart surely had his ups and downs this season, but man, my lasting memory of this season for Carter Hart has to be his just unbelievable performance during the playoffs. The guy put the Flyers on his back during several huge moments, and we're talking about a kid. We're talking about a 21-year-old kid whose maturity truly shined, and that is just wildly impressive just to begin with. Tyson, talk to us a little bit about Carter Hart's performance this season, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, regular season for a 22-year-old starting goaltender, he had a .914 save percentage. So in comparison, 22 may not seem that old in the NHL when players break in when they're 18, 19. Goalies do not. They just don't. I mean, even the New York Rangers have this young Russian star goalie, Igor Schusterkin, who played a handful of games for them this year. And he's like 23, I believe, 24. And this was his first year in North America, and he still was not a starter, right? He started some games in the playoffs, but Henrik Lundqvist is still there. It's not as though this is the slam dunk option for them. He may be next year. But again, by then he's a few years older still than Carter Hart. And so for a player as young as Hart to come in, and he had a .914 save percentage in the regular season, that's good. That's above NHL average for this year. Playoffs, .926. Okay, .926. And so the hard thing about him in particular is there's just so few comparables. I think if you watch the NBC broadcast, everyone was always like, Carey Price, because that's the last time a player of this age, both in playoff performances and in regular season performances, had a similarity. Because otherwise we're like, well, we got to go back 10 years, right? Because Price is like 31 now. So you got to go back 10 years to see it. So that just tells you what it is. Some of it is obviously the Flyers gave him opportunity. A lot of teams will have a young stud goalie. They won't give opportunity. But then Cart has ran with it. So it's not as though they just said, well, here you go. You're a 20-year-old rookie, right? Last year or your season before this. And we're just going to throw you to the Wolves. And they did that a little bit. But yeah, he ran with it. It's like, here's the reins, go. And he has proven that he is up for the task. And that's unheard of for a 22-year-old.
You stole the question right from me, dude. I can't believe you talked about Carey Price. We're going to talk about future outlook. That was a beautiful segue. At 21 years old, Carey Price was arguably one of the best goaltenders in the NHL at the time. He's Carter Hart's idol. At 21 years old, 53 games, Carey Price went 23, 16, and 10, a .905 save percentage, 2.3 goals against. Dude, is that Carter Hart's ceiling, or could we just be scratching the surface?
I think he could potentially get higher. The hard thing about Price is Price was really exceptional until the last 3 years or so, and goalies tend to mature later as well. We were talking about Ivan Provorov, and defense maturing later. one of the reasons why goalies take so long to develop is, I mean, sometimes guys don't hit their prime till early 30s. I mean, Jordan Bennington, who led the Blues on this run, was technically a rookie, and he was 26 last year and struggled in the playoffs this year. But it's a tumultuous position. And so Price had a good playoff this year. But in general, a lot of people had soured on him as a top 10 goalie even the last 3 years. And so I think if we're looking at Hart, you hope that the ceiling is such that he continues with that progression, and then he takes that step forward where even when he's in his early 30s, we're still looking at him and being like, no, he's still a top 10. And so I think that that's his potential ceiling. I think the difference between him and Price, and we'll see how this goes going forward, but as of right now, the Flyers are a great mix. As we've talked many times, of youth and veterans. They have a really good mix of the two. And so for Price, even now, like Price is just, the Canadians go with him. Like they win or lose with him. Now in the playoffs, that was kind of the case with Hart. That wasn't the case during the regular season. They didn't need him to save 92% of the shots he faced at even strength for them to win. They didn't need him to. I mean, Elliott had at 5-on-5, Brian Elliott, the backup, had one of the worst 5-on-5 save percentages in the league. And it didn't matter. They still were winning games with both of them in net. So that all goes to say, if the Flyers have this well constructed and continue to keep building this thing in that same direction, and say they have a between 5 and 6 year run, you continue to give, it's almost like a video game. You give Carter Hart extra lives, right? You're not tiring him out in both his youth and his prime years. Instead, you are allowing him to continue to develop, and then allowing him, therefore, to be dominant past his 30s. So I think the Flyers have that structure. Goaltending is an individual position, but it's also very team-oriented. Depends on where he's getting the shots from, how many they are, how much he's actually working in comparison to how much is just a routine butterfly save. And so, yeah, I think his ceiling could potentially be higher than Carey Price if his team continues in that progression.
We just did a Ivan Provorov season review podcast. If you're watching Sixers, Eagles, and Phillies, take a page from the Philadelphia Flyers. Player development. I'm looking at you, Sixers, Eagles, and Phillies, because this is where it's at. Philadelphia Flyers are taking prospects and pushing them to the next level, in their development. Before we jumped over season grade, how would you grade Carter Hart's season in 2019-2020?
Well, it's hard because there's no comparables. Like I said, there's like one comparison. So I gave him an A. I'm like, I mean, he's 22 years old. He's a starting goaltender on the second best team in the Eastern Conference during the regular season, right? They won a playoff. They won the round robin. They won a first round playoff series, right? Before losing to the Islanders in Game 7, where they came back. And a lot of that was on Hart's shoulders as to why they came back. And you look at that as a whole, and you're like, yeah, it's an A. So I gave him an A. There's just, players aren't doing what he's doing at his age. So, outside of the Flyers circle, everyone's still talking about him. I mean, all over the place. They're like, no, he's an example of why maybe you should take a goalie earlier, and everyone's been scared to. You'll see it again this year. One of the best goaltending prospects since him, Yaroslav Askarov, may not go in the first 20 picks of the draft, but yet on talent paper, people think like, well, if he hits the ceiling, he might be top 10, maybe even top 5. But I could see him dropping to 20. So,
wow.
He's definitely adding to that conversation now, and I think that's cool. He's kind of changing some of the dynamics surrounding it. Everyone's talking about him.
My man Tyson and I, we did a scouting profile podcast on Yaskarov. So for all our NHL draft junkies, you can find that pod. Just search the Painted Lines Yaskarov scouting report. It's all right there. That was like kind of my take. Like that was my main take out of the playoffs. Yeah, Game 7, it really sucked. It really, really sucked. But really at the end of the day, you just now have a true number one goalie. And that is like the overarching main positive from even though it was disheartening, the offense, the power play, all of that stuff. The Flyers top scorers, just could not get it going. You have a number one goalie. It is like arguably that and quarterback are like the two top positions in sports. So it's just extremely, extremely positive. Let's talk about future outlook. Carter Hart becomes a restricted free agent in 2021, 2022. Like, what kind of contract do you expect Carter Hart to receive in the near future, man?
This is a hard one. So, again, comparables, right? So, oftentimes goalies at his age haven't broken into the NHL yet. So they'll finish their entry level playing in the minor leagues, and they'll sign another less than $1 million deal. The hard thing for him is the Flyers will have two options. So one option will be, and they did this with Provorov, right? They look at him right now and say, well, he's not worth, in the year he signed it, he's not worth $6.75 million right now. He's probably worth closer to between a $4.5 million contract for this year. However, 6 years from now, if we are doing our jobs of developing him and putting the right kind of players around him, what kind of player do you think he'll be worth? And so a top pairing defenseman in the NHL now is $10-11 million on average per year, right? Cap hit per year. So they looked at Provorov and said, well, if we can overpay him years 1, 2, and 3, we'll underpay him 4, 5, and 6. And so that's why they committed to that. They may go that direction with Hart. The hard thing for him is, again, with ceiling. So goalies all over the place. Sergei Bobrovsky, Carey Price have over $10 million price tags to them. You ask anyone in the league, are they worth it? They all say no, right?
Yeah.
Freddie Anderson, Leaf starter. He's considered a top 10 goalie. He makes $5. Darcy Kemper, he's a starter in Arizona. Has really good numbers. He just plays in Arizona, $4.5 million a year. So what happens with goalies is this is a crazy range. It's really, that market is more dependent on value to franchise. So I think if I were the Flyers, I would try to bridge deal him. So a 2 to 3 year deal with a lower cap hit between $4.5 and $6 million, perhaps. And then you look at that, maybe you overpay the first year of that potentially, because even though he's a starting goalie, maybe he's not putting up .920 save percentage. Maybe he's not a Vezina Trophy finalist. But long term, like, that gives him an opportunity to earn a bigger contract, gives you some time to perhaps use that cap space for someone else. But again, it's going to be a hard one. I'm really curious as to how it's going to be. Flyers are committed to him, so there's a good chance he signs a longer term contract. They might try to see if they can eat up a couple of UFA years, and maybe that'll help throw some money. But another factor too, and he's the only kind of pending RFA in our top 5, is this COVID-19 thing is really messing with contracts, and people just don't know what that's going to bring because it's a flat cap now. We stopped doing this. The nice thing is he's the biggest bargain in the league. He's making $730,000.
Yeah,
he's $30,000. He's signed for $30,000 above league minimum wage in his entry level contract. Insane.
Quick side note: yes or no? Would you bring back Brian Elliott?
I would, as a backup. And I say that because he and Hart have a really good relationship. And so in terms of backup, like were his numbers as good as you would like them to be? No. But if you're playing Hart more to 50 some games a year, in comparison to what's available on the market, I mean, the other options might be like a Cam Talbot, who the Flyers brought in for a second, who is also has a relationship with Carter Hart, but he's going to demand closer to $3 million a year. Okay. So with this hard cap, I think it makes sense to sign Elliott. And if you have a relationship, like there's no conflict, like the competition is not trying to win, I think it's going to go well.
All right, cool. Let's go on to some areas that Carter Hart can continue to grow, develop as he cements himself as one of the top goalies in 2020-21. Go ahead, man.
It's a hard one to even say because basically it's just growing in consistency, I guess. But he was so consistent, like he'd have an off game here or there. But in general, he was more consistent. So I think for him, I think more than anything for him, it's going to be continuing to learn. And this is key in the goaltending position for longevity, angles versus energy. So how to continue using your angles to your advantage and exerting less energy. and in doing so you're able to conserve it for the moments in the game when you have to do like a crazy stand on your head Dominic Hasek windmill save. And so I think he already does that well. So really, for the most part, it's just going to be a matter of him just consistently growing in on-ice awareness of the puck and where to be when. And that's pretty much it. I mean, he's already there. I mean, I've been watching this whole playoffs and lots of different goalies and just thinking about him in comparison to others. And it's just like, no, he's already does that well. He already does that as well as that guy. You know, you're just kind of looking for comparisons. And yeah, I mean, it won't be long. I mean, right now, I think kind of the consensus 1-2 goalies in the league right now. John Gibson on Anaheim. You won't hear his name as much because the Ducks aren't good, but he's incredible. And Andrei Vasilevsky on Tampa, who just made the Stanley Cup final, and he's very young as well. Those are kind of the two guys right now. Vasilevsky being mid-20s. He's going to make $9.5 million as well soon.
Okay.
Those are the two guys that are kind of leading the way on that regard. But I don't think it'll be long before he's in that conversation, honestly.
I think the biggest knock on Carter Hart was his win-loss between home and road. And did you notice any differences there between his performance on the road? Is there anything that he could clean up to just kind of get better, improve, develop?
It's almost hard to measure because sometimes it's team related and oriented. And as a Philly sports fan, you know, there's no fans like Philly sports fans.
Nope.
So sometimes a confidence just from being like, yo, I know I got 20,000 people got my back right now. And that can just add a whole layer versus when you're on the road and it's like, oh man, I'm getting heckled. I mean, it's funny. Some people don't realize it gets loud down there. Some of those guys on the bottom, like there's that glass there. It's not soundproof. Just saying. Like you can yell all day long. So sometimes just a younger goalie like him, it's just developing mental toughness and focus. And I know for him, like they're making fun of him big time. Like he brought his electric guitar to the bubble. And he's just like playing his electric guitar the whole time. Like he's like a really laid back, content dude. He'll just play guitar all night. Like they're getting like noise complaints in the hotel from him playing guitar, you know? And so goaltenders are known as being kind of weird cats. Like he'll just kind of chill. He's his very own person. He's very confident. But he's also very routine driven and is used to being on his own. So sometimes being on the road can kind of just throw guys off. And so the more they get used to that, I think the better it'll be. It's funny as a lot of these things are just more off ice things you can't really measure.
Yeah.
But I do think that'll help. So yeah, there's a whole. I think it was. I always say his name wrong. Charlie Connor. Does that sound right? The Athletic.
Yeah, Charlie.
For Philly.
Yeah. Connor.
He did a piece on Hart and what he was like in the bubble, and it was making me laugh pretty hard because he just seems like a quirky dude. It's just like I'm just going to play guitar for hours on end, and I'm happy. I don't care. And that'll go a long ways, I think, in other respects. So I
think we have a future like a band happening in Philly sports. We should get Carter Hart and we should get Jordan Mailata, who's a scrub bum right tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. He plays the ukulele. I think he's from Australia. If I could be wrong, I could be wrong on that. Get those two together. Let's get a band. That'd be so much fun, dude. Let's talk about expectations for next season. Carter Hart.
Yeah, I think seeing him approach the .920 save percentage in the regular season cumulatively would be good. I think well over 30 wins is not out of the question for him next season. And I think too, just some of those things we talked about, seeing his road record improve. I think those are kind of good measuring points for him in terms of continued success. So, and hopefully too, like we still don't know when the NHL season is going to start. It might be January. It's going to be a weird offseason for players. It really is. So hopefully he kind of figured that out. He's not going to be like some of these other guys who have kids in school right now and they're trying to navigate all these other things. He doesn't have kids. He's 22, 21, 22. So he will have opportunity to fully focus on next season. So I could very much see him moving ahead next season and being closer to a .920 goalie. I wouldn't say he's going to be in the Vezina conversation yet, but stranger things have happened.
All right. All right, that is my man Tyson. Follow him on Twitter at QuiBallTyson. It is plug time. Go.
I'm excited about the NHL draft. I always am. Anything you want to see, go ahead. Check me out on the Painted Lines. I got lots of draft content on there. Also working on some projects of top 100 prospects per positions as well. It's going to be coming in the next month or so. So keep your eyes out for that. Also, I always love feedback. So anytime you want to comment or anything, I think interaction is good. So feel free to do so. Excited to continue to talk about the Flyers and all things hockey prospects.
Love it, love it, love it. If you're an NHL draft junkie, check out thepaintedlines.com or check out our YouTube channel here. Tyson and I did in-depth scouting reports on all the top 10 prospects in the NHL draft, which is coming up. For Tyson, for myself, thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of baseball.
And the Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh man, and being just posterized, Russell Westbrook.